Canada just got blindsided by one of the most chaotic retail collapses in recent memory, and no one saw it coming this fast. 7-Eleven, a cornerstone of Canadian convenience culture, has just slammed the doors shut on all of its locations across the country. We're talking about 444 stores gone, lights off, shelves empty, windows dark. And no, this isn't just a quirky story about your favorite late-night taquito spot disappearing. This is a full-blown economic meltdown playing out on the sidewalks of Canada's cities and towns. The shutdown of these stores isn't just about Slurpees and snack runs.
If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your feedback helps shape what we cover next, and you being here keeps the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
It's about something much bigger, a system under pressure, a government asleep at the wheel, and communities left completely exposed. Let's start with the facts. This is the largest wave of closures in 7-Eleven's history, ever. And it's hitting Canada the hardest, especially western provinces like Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and British Columbia. These aren't just random dots on a map, these are core pillars of Canada's resource-based economy. If you want to know how fragile the national economy really is, start where people live, work, and buy their coffee. This wasn't a slow fade. It was a sudden, sweeping shutdown triggered by a perfect storm: inflation, retail theft, skyrocketing operating costs, and a consumer base that's been squeezed dry. Small purchases, down. Cigarette sales, declining. Vaping products, choked by regulation. Meanwhile, everything from electricity bills to security costs has surged, leaving razor-thin margins completely wiped out. And here's where it gets ugly. These stores weren't just about convenience. In a lot of neighborhoods, especially working class and underserved communities, 7-Eleven was the only thing open late. It was a gas station without the gas. A corner store with just enough light to make you feel safe. And now it's gone. What replaces it? Probably nothing. This is more than a retail collapse. This is a signal flare. A warning. If a massive, global brand like 7-Eleven can't survive in Canada's current retail climate, then what chance does your average mom-and-pop shop have? But before we get to the wider fallout, let's talk about what led us here. First, declining sales. Inflation has battered consumer spending, and convenience stores thrive on small, impulse buys. Think cigarettes, soda, quick bites. But when prices jump and paychecks don't, that $3 drink becomes a luxury. People cut back. They stop popping in. And those tiny purchases that once kept the lights on, they vanish. Next, theft. 7-Eleven has been hit hard by rising crime in city centers. Retail theft has become so aggressive that some locations saw security budgets ballooning faster than revenue. Add to that an understaffed police response, weak deterrence, and neighborhoods already dealing with economic stress, and suddenly, running a 24-hour store becomes more of a liability than a business. Now throw in government regulations. Ottawa's tighter rules on tobacco and vaping products, two of the highest margin categories in the store, cut deep into profitability. These weren't optional items, they were the backbone of 7-Eleven's revenue model. Take those away, and the math stops working. It's a brutal equation. Higher costs, lower revenue, rising crime, and tighter rules. And in Western Canada, where the economy is already under strain from global energy shifts and lagging regional investment, these hits feel twice as hard. Here's the twist that takes this from tragic to downright infuriating. Canada almost had control over this. A $46 billion acquisition bid from a Canadian firm, Couche-Tard, to buy the Japanese parent company of 7-Eleven was rejected. If that deal had gone through, Canada could have had strategic oversight of the chain. Decisions like mass closures could have been made with Canadian communities in mind. But now, all that power sits overseas and Canadian neighborhoods are left holding the bag. So let's break this down. What just happened isn't just a series of unfortunate events. It's a snapshot of an economic structure cracking from the ground up. Convenience stores might not be glamorous, but they're foundational. They reflect the health of a community. They employ locals. They offer safety nets. They're where kids buy candy and night shift workers grab coffee. When they disappear, the streets feel darker literally and metaphorically. And we're not just talking about the stores themselves. The closures have ripple effects. Job losses, reduced foot traffic for nearby businesses, less access to basic goods in areas already underserved by larger retailers. And for communities that relied on these stores as late-night hubs, it's a loss that reshapes daily life.
If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your feedback helps shape what we cover next, and you being here keeps the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
But let's talk about what this really says about Canada's economic direction. The country's street-level economy is in trouble. Inflation has gutted spending power. Regulations, though well-intentioned, have squeezed margins past the point of survival. Crime remains a chronic, under-addressed issue. And government responses, slow, inadequate, detached. The fact that 7-Eleven, a brand built on the idea of being everywhere, is now nowhere in Canada should send a chill down every policymaker's spine. This isn't just about Slurpees. This is about sovereignty. About how a global chain can pull out of a country because staying simply isn't worth the trouble and there's nothing that country can do about it. And maybe the most sobering part, there's no clear solution in sight. Without serious intervention on crime, inflation, regional economic disparity, and retail support, more closures are inevitable. Other chains are watching this play out. Small businesses are already gasping for air. And if even a giant like 7-Eleven can't withstand the storm, what happens when the next one falls? Canada is at a crossroads. The street-level economy is telling a story, and it's not a good one. What used to be vibrant, accessible, and community-centered is now boarded up and silent. And unless there's a shift in how the country treats small and mid-sized retail, this is just the beginning. You might think, well, it's just convenience stores. We'll adapt. But this isn't adaptation. This is erosion. A slow, grinding loss of everyday spaces that kept communities running. And the silence replacing them. It's loud. If you've ever relied on a 7-Eleven, whether it was for a late-night snack, a place that felt safe on a walk home, or just a quick stop between errands, you know this isn't just about retail. It's about what happens when a country lets essential infrastructure collapse because the problems felt too small to fix until they weren't. And if you think this won't affect you, think again. The next wave could hit grocery stores, pharmacies, local restaurants, anyone trying to survive in a system that's cracking under pressure. What happened to 7-Eleven is a warning, one we can't afford to ignore. If you're just as stunned by this as we are, make sure to hit that like button, drop a comment sharing how this affects your community, and don't forget to subscribe. We're breaking down the chaos, one meltdown at a time. Alright, so here we are mid-meltdown with 444 stores wiped off the map and a ripple effect that's already hitting harder than anyone's ready to admit. The most jarring part. This wasn't just a bad quarter or a seasonal dip. This was a calculated, strategic shutdown. The kind of move companies only make when they've reached the end of the road. And if 7-Eleven is at that point in Canada, we have to ask, how bad is it really out there? Because 7-Eleven isn't some mom-and-pop shop struggling to stay afloat in the digital age. It's a global powerhouse. A chain that's survived wars, recessions, and even the rise of food delivery apps. For decades, it's been the convenience store blueprint. You don't shut down hundreds of stores overnight unless something is seriously broken, and not just in your own business model, but in the environment you're trying to operate in. Let's go back to Western Canada for a second. Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, British Columbia. These provinces aren't fringe players. They're energy hubs, agriculture centers, economic lifelines. But lately, they've been carrying a disproportionate amount of pain. Energy prices fluctuating, regional investment lagging, crime on the rise in urban pockets. And through it all, the federal response has been at best muted. You can't keep ignoring whole regions and then act surprised when businesses pull out in droves. The scary part is that these provinces needed those stores, not just for jobs, but for basic access. We're talking about towns where 7-Eleven was the only 24-hour spot. And now that it's gone, people are forced to travel farther just to grab essentials. For low-income neighborhoods and people working irregular hours, that's not just inconvenient, that's destabilizing. And we haven't even touched the psychological toll yet. Because yeah, it's one thing to lose a store, but it's another to see your community lose all of them. It sends a message, whether anyone says it out loud or not. You're not worth the investment. That's how people are feeling right now in these provinces. Abandoned, cut off, and increasingly unsafe. Because here's the kicker, those stores helped maintain order. They were lit, staffed, open. They added eyes to the street and foot traffic to otherwise empty areas. They were unofficial landmarks, anchors of stability in places that already felt neglected. And now that they're gone, you've got darkened street corners, higher chances of crime, and zero plan in place to fill the void. And let's not forget the workers. Thousands of people just lost their jobs. Many of them working class, part-time, or students. the kind of folks who don't have savings to fall back on or remote work to cushion the blow. This wasn't just a paycheck. For some, it was the difference between staying afloat and sinking. And with job markets tightening and inflation still choking wallets, good luck finding a quick replacement. Let's talk more about inflation, because it's not just some buzzword, it's the wrecking ball behind this whole collapse. When the price of everything goes up, wages, power bills, rent, even the cost of keeping shelves stocked, there's only so much a convenience store can absorb, especially when their whole model relies on people popping in for small, frequent purchases. But now, those purchases aren't happening like they used to, because people are feeling the squeeze. And then there's theft. We're not just talking about a few stolen candy bars. This is coordinated, aggressive retail theft that forces stores to spend more on security than they can afford. And with police stretched thin or slow to respond, a lot of stores are left to fend for themselves. Add that to everything else, and you start to see why 7-Eleven just tapped out. What's wild is how quiet the government has been about all this. No emergency plan, no economic response, no acknowledgement of the social collapse this triggers. The regulatory environment in Canada right now is rigid, outdated, and downright punishing to retail chains, particularly the rules around tobacco and vaping products, which used to be cash cows for stores like 7-Eleven. Now those margins are gone, but the costs are still rising. And it's not like nobody tried to stop this from happening. That $46 billion bid from Coach Tar, it could have changed everything. Canadian ownership would have meant local control, local accountability, and local strategy. Decisions could have been made with the long-term health of Canadian communities in mind, not just bottom lines in Japan or the US. But that deal got shut down, just like that. And now here we are, watching a foreign-owned company make sweeping decisions that devastate Canadian neighborhoods, with no recourse. It's a missed opportunity on a national level. A moment where Canada could have stepped up, taken control of its own infrastructure, and protected a crucial part of the economy. But instead, that control was handed over, and now the consequences are impossible to ignore. You know what this really shows? Canada has a serious problem with economic sovereignty. If a massive retail network can disappear overnight and the country has zero influence over it, what else is vulnerable? What other industries are sitting on a knife's edge, owned by foreign entities with no stake in Canada's long-term stability? This isn't just a retail story anymore. It's a systemic one. The collapse of 7-Eleven in Canada is a red flag about where things are heading. A breakdown at the grassroots level that's exposing cracks in the national foundation. And the worst part, there's no clear plan to stop the bleeding. If policymakers don't act now, if they don't address crime, inflation, and support for regional economies, then 7-Eleven will just be the first domino to fall. Other chains will follow. Local businesses will crumble. Communities will weaken. And what's left behind is an economy that doesn't work for the people living in it. You might walk past a boarded-up 7-Eleven and shrug, but next time, it could be the pharmacy, the grocer, the coffee shop, and slowly, quietly, the infrastructure that holds everyday life together will vanish. Because this is how it starts. Not with a massive crash, but with a slow, collective shrug. A few closures here, a few layoffs there, until one day, you look around and realize everything's gone. The places you depended on, the jobs that kept people afloat, the lights that made your neighborhood feel safe, gone. Here's the part no one wants to say out loud. When 7-Eleven pulled the plug, they didn't just take their taquitos and coffee machines, they took a chunk of Canada's economic backbone with them. Because what's unfolding here isn't just a business retreat. It's an indictment of the entire system that let it happen. This was preventable, but no one stepped in. No one course-corrected. And now hundreds of communities are waking up without the stores that, frankly, held things together. Let's be real, 7-Eleven wasn't glamorous. It wasn't supposed to be. It was functional, reliable, a place you stopped on your way to work or at 2 a.m. when nothing else was open. But that was exactly its value. In a country where access to basic services can vary wildly by neighborhood, 7-Eleven filled the gaps. It served areas that bigger retailers ignored. It stayed open when others closed early. It showed up when the rest of the system didn't. And now, it's gone. Because of theft. Because of inflation. Because the math stopped working. But let's take it one step further. What happens after the closures? What happens to those now empty retail spaces, sitting in the middle of already struggling neighborhoods? Vacancy isn't just a visual blight. It invites decline. Property values dip. Crime creeps in. Nearby businesses suffer from the drop in foot traffic. Before long, A once functional street corner becomes a symbol of collapse. And here's where it gets even messier. No one's rushing in to fill the gap. You don't see new investors lining up to build community-first retail in these areas. There's no overnight pivot to locally owned alternatives. Because the reality is, if a giant like 7-Eleven can't survive here, what chance does anyone else have? We're watching a chain reaction in slow motion. And sure, it's easy to point fingers at corporate HQ, at regulators, at crime stats, but this is deeper. The closures are just the symptom. The real illness. A fragile, overregulated, underprotected economy where the little guys are always the first to fall. Where small towns and working-class neighborhoods are treated like afterthoughts. And where policy decisions are made from such a distance that they forget real people live at the other end of them. And what about that lost Canadian acquisition? That right there could have changed the narrative. A $46 billion shot at national control, not just of a retail chain, but of a critical piece of infrastructure. Think of what that kind of ownership could have meant: strategic reinvestment, policy influence, local hiring. But nope, rejected, opportunity missed, and the chain's future decided by corporate boards thousands of miles away. It's more than frustrating, it's gutting. Because for a moment, there was a path forward. A version of this story where communities weren't left out in the cold. But instead, we got the worst-case scenario. A mass pullout. And silence. So now the question is, what will fill the void? Will it be crime? Vacancy? More economic decay? Or will this finally be the moment when policymakers wake up to what's happening outside of the big cities? When they stop treating retail as a second-tier concern and start seeing it for what it really is: a foundation. The kind of thing that, when removed, makes everything else start to wobble. Because let's not forget, this isn't about nostalgia for cheap hot dogs. It's about access, safety, jobs, dignity. And when you lose all of that in one sweep, you're not just losing a store. You're losing trust, faith that things can get better, that someone is paying attention. Right now, that faith is hanging by a thread. So if you're watching this thinking, this doesn't affect me, take a second. Think about how many parts of your daily life rely on something being open, nearby, and safe. That's what just disappeared for thousands of Canadians overnight. And unless something changes, unless there's a real effort to rebuild and protect what's left, it won't be the last. Let us know what you're seeing in your community. Are stores closing near you? Is your neighborhood feeling the impact? We want to hear it all, because this story isn't over, it's just beginning. And if you want to stay in the loop as this unfolds, make sure to like, share, and hit that subscribe button. We're watching a system unravel and someone needs to say it out loud. Thanks so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, you're officially part of the small percentage of people who don't just click away, and that means a lot. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me your thoughts, your ideas, or even what you'd like to see next. I read every single one of them, and your feedback genuinely shapes the direction of this channel. If you enjoyed the video, tap that like button. It tells YouTube this content is worth sharing. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next upload. We've got more exciting videos coming, and trust me, you'll want to be here for them. This channel is just getting started, and your support helps it grow faster than you realize. Thank you again for spending a part of your day here with me. Stay curious, stay motivated, and as always, take care of yourself. Until next time, I'll see you in the next video.